楽しい楽しい。
I haven't done one of these videos in a long time, so I hope this video will be a pleasant surprise for those of you who have missed my character analysis videos. And what better way to bring them back by talking to you about a seriously underrated character in the series, Kanzaki Kaori. Despite appearing in the very first volume of the series, Kanzaki is nowhere near as popular as female characters such as Misaka, Shokuho, and Ophinus, but still has way more fans than perhaps Himegami and Vento. Once again, I want to scapegoat the anime a bit for portraying her as a bland character in most her scenes. I feel like the anime onlys who like her just like her for her appearance and aesthetic without going into detail about Kanzaki as a character. Sure, I'm generalising a bit here, cause I clearly hate every single fan that doesn't read 50 volumes of a forgotten novel series. That's a joke, by the way. But it is true that when I'm wasting my life away in the hell that is Toaru Twitter on a daily basis, I rarely see anyone talk about why Kanzaki is a great character and one of the best female characters in the series. And yes, that includes the fans of the light novels too, as even they don't talk about it that much. All fans on both sides of the spectrum seem to care more about the body of a 2D anime girl rather than actual substance. And I can't necessarily blame them for this since it's to be expected. So, since I'm one of few Toaru fans on the internet that actually enjoys to analyse and discuss underrated themes and characters from this amazing series, it might as well be me to shed some new light on why Kanzaki is great. Or I could just make a billion videos about why Accelerator is the strongest character that has ever existed in fiction and in the multiverse for that juicy clickbait ad revenue, but I'll leave that as a last resort, luckily for you. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get started. Kanzaki's magic name is Salvaire 000. Be the salvation of those who cannot be saved. The two concepts of salvation and also fate are the two main themes of Kanzaki's character. While the character most associated with the word misfortune is of course Kamijo Toma, it is an important theme to Kanzaki's character too, but I like to consider this as the component of the concept of fate. Kanzaki was born as a saint, blessed with a portion of the power of the Son of God. This would be seen as a miracle in the magic side, considering there are only 20 saints in the world, and a blessing if that saint is born into their cabal like Kanzaki was with the Amakusa Church. But in Kanzaki's case, it seemed to be more a curse than a blessing. You know, there is a famous quote about having a lot of power means you might have a burden on your shoulders, and that was the case with Kanzaki. When Kanzaki was just a child, she was made High Priestess of the Amakusa Church, and with her power as a saint, she was able to save her fellow Amakusa Christians when attacked or in danger. But there was a cost. Her fellow Amakusa members would often sacrifice their lives to save hers, simply because of her importance as a saint. Kanzaki became sickened at seeing her friends and comrades die to protect her, as Kanzaki herself had made a vow that she would never kill anyone, but despite this, she was indirectly killing the Amakusa by her presence in the Cabal. Kanzaki's disdain for herself all stems from this background. Her blessing is a double-edged sword, as it is also a curse that she is fated to carry as long as she lives as a saint. Kanzaki was so lucky to be born as a saint, but at the same time, at the expense of spreading misfortune to those around her, as saints are seen as massive threats by rival cabals, making the Amakusa, and particularly Kanzaki, a primary target for attack. That is why Kanzaki dislikes it when she hears the word misfortune, especially from Toma, since it's part of his catchphrase. Kanzaki was extremely fortunate as a saint, as she's always had luck and been successful, but at the detriment of those around her. As saints bear the body of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, there are similarities between Jesus and Kanzaki. No joke. Both were blessed by being born with a title and magical powers, Jesus being the Messiah and being able to perform miracles, and Kanzaki as a saint with her physical strength and speed. And both suffered from this, also acting as a curse, as Jesus was persecuted for being the Messiah, and Christians suffered persecution as a result of their faith in Christ at the hands of the Roman Empire. And both can be perceived as pacifists, Jesus being a more extreme pacifist than Kanzaki for sure, but I like that Kamachi utilises the religious themes in the story to give the characters and story greater depth, and the religious names and magic you find in the series aren't just there to sound cool. The religious elements actually play an important role for understanding the series more. Kanzaki decided to leave the Amakusa Church in an attempt to rid herself of the fate she found herself in. The Amakusa were greatly weakened by Kanzaki's exit, but Kanzaki saw herself as a burden to the Amakusa, and they could have more self-determination and independence without her. In her eyes, she had given them salvation. Kanzaki joined the Anglican Church, where she became friends with Style and Index. Kanzaki had abandoned home and cut all ties with her former friends and comrades and left them for a foreign land. It is unsurprising that she bonded with Style and Index more than anyone else, both of them being outcasts like herself that don't really fit in with others around them. However, their happiness would not last forever. Kanzaki and Style discovered that Index's memory had to be wiped annually, with the exception of the grimoires in her head, in order to stop her brain from overloading with her perfect memory. Index no longer remembered Kanzaki. She was now a complete stranger to her. Kanzaki, being the selfless person she is, could not accept this initially, as her and Style attempted to recreate their memories of Index for another year. But it was not the same. It was not genuine. It was just not the same Index they once knew. Index was once a blessing to Kanzaki, but then turned into a curse, much like how Kanzaki viewed herself as a saint in the Amakusa. Kanzaki ultimately gave up on Index and accepted it was Index's fate to live like this, much like how she accepted her own fate, that she would cause suffering to those around her. Kanzaki, above all else, is a realist. Unlike Kamijo Toma, who is an idealist, Kanzaki is grounded to accept the reality before her without challenging it, due to blaming herself for what happened to the Amakusa. Because of this, she felt there was no way to save Index. She believes no matter how hard she fights, it is futile, as she cannot change the fate she and others like Index are born with. Therefore, she removes herself from the lives of others so that they can be happy. Toma, on the other hand, refuses to give up on others and his idealistic view of the world to be able to destroy fate, symbolised by his Imagine Breaker, which is able to destroy the red string of fate. Toma will never stop fighting to save others, and would even become a man willing to go to extreme lengths if he failed in doing so. As if Toma failed to save Index in the first arc, he would have ended up like Izard, who wanted to turn Index into a vampire in order to restore her memories and their friendship. Toma is the opposite of Kanzaki when they first meet. Even after explaining to Toma the situation with Index, Toma is convinced there must be another way to save Index from her fate, despite what Kanzaki says. Kanzaki gave up on her friend, while Toma is willing to continue fighting and even challenge someone obviously way stronger than him to prove that point. Toma brands Kanzaki as selfish, as she only did what was convenient to herself rather than struggle to help Index. While Toma is somewhat naive of Kanzaki's situation, given that she did try to redo her friendship with Index, but the pain was just too much for her. His words still impact Kanzaki, since Kanzaki has always thought negative of herself and tried to justify her actions due to the circumstances she found herself in. I don't believe Toma is correct in that Kanzaki is selfish, but it is true that as she is too fixated on herself and the idea of fortune. Toma is not a saint with incredible power. Sure, he has a Magic Breaker, but that is only useful in the correct situations. He isn't superhuman like Kanzaki, so he believes Kanzaki can do anything if she tried hard enough. But Kanzaki wished to act as Index's enemy instead, as that way the same process of Index suffering as a result of learning her memories were wiped would finally stop for good. Magic names are engraved onto the hearts of magicians, acting as their ultimate goal, the culmination of their dreams and ideals. Kanzaki's magic name, Salvaire 000, the salvation of those who cannot be saved, refers to what she wants to become but cannot. She was unable to prevent the Amakusa sacrificing themselves for her, and she was unable to save Index, and she was unable to change fate. Toma, on the other hand, challenged fate and won. He saved Index, the one who could not be saved. It is therefore fitting that for the first time Kanzaki reveals her magic name is when she is aiding Toma to stop Index in John's pen mode. In essence, Kanzaki wants to be like Toma. He was her ideal person, someone who does not let misfortune or his place or position in society control him, someone who will never give up no matter how impossible the situation may seem. As Toma is too selfless as a person, he always prioritizes others over himself. So does Kanzaki to an extent, but one is positive and the other is negative. And like a magnet, Kanzaki develops feelings for Toma. It makes sense as she sees Toma as the positive influence in her life that broke her illusions that fate cannot be changed. Kanzaki remains with the Anglican Church despite learning that she had been lied to about Index, perhaps because she believes in her duties or sees no home for herself, as she still can't bring herself back to the Amakusa. During the Aqua of the Back arc, Kanzaki develops as a character, and I consider it to be the peak of her character as it completes the character arc she had since the start of the series. She fights against Aqua to protect her former Amakusa comrades and Toma, as Aqua wants a Magic Breaker to resolve the current political crisis between the magic and science sides. Kanzaki is overpowered by Aqua, as he is way stronger than her, demonstrating despite Kanzaki's power as a saint, she cannot defeat Aqua alone. It brings her to the realization that her being a saint is meaningless right now if she cannot defeat Aqua. Kanzaki decides to put her faith in others and overcome a seemingly impossible problem in the form of Aqua. She is inspired by the actions of Toma, who also stood up to fate and changed it, to believe in her own power and the power of others. Kanzaki reunites with the Amakusa and fights alongside them for the first time in years, recognizing that the Amakusa combined have enough skill and experience to take on Aqua, and Kanzaki herself is a part of that unit. She no longer fears the sacrifice of those around her, as she has faith that they can overcome fate. Aqua does not understand why Kanzaki does this, believing that Kanzaki is using the weak to save herself. Kanzaki refutes this by saying she was the weak one, by leaving the Amakusa by thinking they weren't strong enough without her, and had to force herself to save Amakusa members in combat at the expense of strategy and tactics. Aqua is the opposite of the Amakusa's unity in this situation. Like Kanzaki, Aqua left his own country to join another, but fights solely by himself as he knows he cannot rely on others to succeed due to his own overwhelming strength. It is ironic that his individual strength is his downfall, as his God's right seat and saint power make him especially weak to the Saint Destroyer attack, which was exploited by the Amakusa working as a team. Toma, Kanzaki and the Amakusa all worked together to defeat Aqua, exploiting this Achilles heel. It proved to Kanzaki that she was wrong all those years ago, that strength as a saint means nothing if your mind is not in the right place, and that people are never determined by their fortune. They have the power to change their fortunes, and those born into success or power can still fail, and those who aren't born into those luxuries can succeed to greater heights. Toma is living proof of that, born into misfortune and hated by his peers as a child. That didn't stop him from challenging his own misfortune and succeeding where a saint like Kanzaki did not. In his final victory against Aqua, Kanzaki acted as the salvation of those who could not be saved, thus achieving her dream. Kanzaki has a role in some volumes after this, but I mainly wanted to talk about the most important core of her character, which I summarised here, so I won't continue further. Anyway, what do you think about Kanzaki as a character? And subscribe and comment if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.